Welcome to Naked Age on the Naturist Living Show, a historical audio series exploring uncommon stories and profiling unique people who have gone to extraordinary lengths to live a nude life. I'm your host, Evan Nix. In this episode, we'll meet the remarkable Lora Boswell, one-time owner of California's Lupin Lodge and a lifelong nudist with a distinct point of view on nudity. This is Naked Age by Naturist Vintage.
You're listening to Naked Age.
To start a nudist club in the 1930s meant taking on incredible financial and legal risk. In most areas, parks could only run for part of the year. The grounds were costly to maintain, and many of these clubs did not advertise. Profit margins were naturally low. The catalyst for a club to survive despite these obstacles, in many cases, came down to a mix of good luck and zealous members who would step up in times of need. This, naturally, is the case with Lupin Lodge, which, in its 85-year history, had multiple benefactors who came to its rescue time and again. Nestled in the Lexington Hills near Los Gatos, California, Lupin Lodge is the West Coast's longest continuously running nudist resort. It was first established in 1936 under the name Elysium Foundation by a man named George Marcellus Spray. But by 1938, George Spray was bankrupt, and with creditors nipping at his heels, an investor partner named Eugene Lacine bought him out and took full control. He ran the club until 1946, when he sold the property to a French expat living in San Francisco named George Bouffill and his wife Paulette. Over the next few years, George and Paulette experimented with different identities for the club, before landing on the name Lupin Lodge in 1949. But by the 1960s, Bouffill's health, and Lupin's by proxy, were in decline, and the club once again needed a savior if it was to survive. This time, 2 Lupin members would come to its rescue with a creative solution for buying the property and growing its membership. One of these members was a highly intelligent Yale and Stanford graduate named Glenn Stout. Without the financial means to purchase the property outright, Glenn and another member named Lora Boswell drew up an agreement to buy the club on a lease option. As business partners, Glenn and Lora would run the club together for years before Lora sold her stake and left the club in the 1970s. She would later return to live at Lupin as a member. Glenn retained ownership until he passed away in 2015. His widow, Lori K. Stout, still owns Lupin today. In the 1980s, Glenn Stout wrote a detailed history of Lupin Lodge, which he published as a series of articles in the Lupin Lodge Random Times newsletter. In this history, he writes about Lora and how the two of them came to rescue the club.
Lacking a very wealthy and blindly generous benefactor, what the place badly needed was a younger, incurable optimist with unlimited energy, patience, and imagination. Lora, no stranger to Lupin, had reared a family of 3 children with spouse Warren as part of the membership since 1958. Raised in a naturist environment during her childhood in the 1940s by somewhat unconventional parents in Berkeley, Lora would be a superb role model for any feminist wishing for her daughter the self-confidence to open her mind, take reasonable risks, and reach for her personal potential. Multi-talented, artistic, intelligent, athletic, and well-educated. She never seemed to consider gender a limitation. As an entrepreneurial veteran of 2 family business startups, she well understood the limitations of Lupin's resources and had practical experience in making a little go a long way. She could scrounge with the best. She also brought good humor and a free spirit to the job of caretaking Lupin. In effect, she would become the Lupin family's all-purpose Earth Mom, a variation of that selfless societal role of overqualification and undercompensation dumped on women to perform out of love and duty. In all respects but wages, which were necessarily token for everyone on the payroll, she was personally strong enough to be able to play and enjoy that usually one-sided game on her terms. While the marginal Lupin might never become a beacon for materialism, it was like a large blank canvas to the creative artist in Lora. She saw only possibilities.
Today, Lora Boswell is 89 years old. She no longer lives at Lupin Lodge. She now lives in a 500 square foot treehouse that she built by hand in her 80s in a small private community in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And still, she lives most of her life in the nude. In fact, she's been a nudist her entire life, since she was born in Berkeley, California in 1931, when the nudism movement in America was in its infancy. With the help of her partner and tech support, Fred, I recently spoke with Lora over Zoom. She was kind enough to share her story and her highly unique point of view on living a free and natural life.
This meeting is being recorded. Continue. There you go.
Perfect.
All right. Don't go away.
I'm right here.
Oh.
Do you think of yourself as a nudist or as a naturist or neither? How do you identify?
I just identify with that. I really enjoy life without clothes when it's possible.
Yeah.
And I don't, you can put a hashtag on it like, okay, that's called nudism. Well, I'm not really interested in the politics of nudism at all. I'm just interested in my own comfort and joy. And to me, it's the ultimate freedom to be able to be out in nature, out in the world. And that's my main interest in life, is the joy of it. So that's it in a nutshell.
Sure. But you've, I guess, I don't know much about your history. When did you first discover it, or how did you become involved in?
Oh, well, I was born that way, Evan. I mean, I was simply born that way,
Yeah,
And,
I do.
As a baby, my mother tells stories about me running around I'd take my diaper off. You can imagine diapers are horrible.
I've got a toddler. I can definitely imagine that.
Yeah, neighbors would call her and say, "Your baby's outside without anything on," and she would retort with, "Well, don't look if you don't want to." And that was her story. My parents were nudists. My dad and mom were nudists back in the early 30s. I was born in 1931, so that's a while back. My father and mother, we were living in Berkeley. Well, I look back now and I realize that life in Berkeley is different than life anywhere else on the earth, I'm sure.
I'm sure you're right.
Berkeley was, they were like different people. And so that's what I was born and raised in, that atmosphere where body acceptance was, of course, this is who I am. This is what feels good. And that was about the sum total of it for me as a child. It simply felt good to be without clothes when it was hot. And I put clothes on appropriately when it was cold or when I needed to. And that was kind of like it.
So your parents lived a pretty free life. Did they go to nudist clubs? Did they bring you to nudist clubs? Was that part of it, or?
Well, actually, there was a group of friends, I vaguely recall because I was really little then, but they had friends who were families. And the families there were kids my age and older. And we were living in Berkeley, and they would rent something like the Alameda Springs or something, some kind of an indoor pool thing. And I remember going there with my parents and these other families, and we'd bring food along, and we would swim in this swimming pool, all naked. I didn't think about it as being, this was a naked thing, but everybody meaning maybe there were 5 or 6 families with kids, but it all seemed like a great fun thing to be doing, swimming naked. And then my parents moved in the hills above Walnut Creek in California, and it was like 7 or 8 acres in the hill, and it was so secluded that you could see no neighbors from our house. So it seemed like every weekend these families with their kids would come up to our house and run around nude, just like it was a nudist camp or something. And it was great for me because there were these kids my age, and we could run around outside in the 7 acres, and there were no houses. It wasn't like suburbia or anything. We couldn't even see any other houses, which is why my parents bought the place, I'm sure. I never questioned anything about what motivated them to sell one house and buy another, but I'm sure it was because the one that I remember most was so secluded that it was appropriate to run around with nothing on in the summertime.
When you were growing up and when your parents were potentially sort of dabbling in nudism in the 1930s was when it was really beginning in earnest in this country. Before that,
yes,
people certainly got nude and even got nude socially, but it wasn't a movement, so to speak, in the sense that people were organizing and...
Yeah, I remember seeing some publications called Sunshine and Health.
Yeah.
It was a publication, probably is long since not published, but I was a kid, and that came to the house. It was a publication that I think they subscribed to. My dad was also into bodybuilding. He was a scrawny guy, but he lifted weights, and he had a magazine called what was it called? Something to do with bodybuilding. But they all, men had it was always mostly about men doing, bodybuilding and that sort of thing.
Sure.
They always had pants on. It was not a nudist publication, but I remember seeing the publication called Sunshine and Health, and some of my friends, little kid friends, would love to come to the house so they could look at the nudie magazines.
Yeah.
It was probably pretty popular, even though. I was like 7 or 8 and 9 years old, and I distinctly remember having to wear pants when I walked out the front door. I had to wear shorts, but I didn't have to wear a top because my brother, he wore shorts. He didn't have to wear a top. And I remember one day, somebody in the neighborhood reported to my mother that I was not wearing a top, and my mother said to me, maybe you should wear a top. And I go, why? I said, well, because you're going to be older. You're 10 years old now, and you're going to be starting to look older. I go, so I said, oh, okay. So I put a shirt on, and I wore a shirt after that. But that was the extent of it. Growing up, it was, I realized that there was appropriate things and not appropriate things. And when I got into high school, I convinced some of my high school friends to go climb a fence and get into a high school swimming pool. And we were all swimming naked in the dark, pretty much, I think it was. But that was an adventure for all of them, I'm sure. And it was an adventure for me to introduce that element to my high school friends. I don't think anything ever came of it, like, oh, she's a bad person, or, oh my goodness, don't hang out with her. I never had that. I never had that experience. But anyway, so that was kind of my early experience of family nudism. And then I went away to college and went to art. Artists were kind of a different breed of. It's not exactly. It was kind of like we were all kind of free spirits in a way that was different, but it didn't involve nudism at all. I never remember having a bunch of college friends going nude at all. It never, I guess it never, maybe it never occurred to me. It was just some things that I did and didn't do for my own reasons of comfort. And then I met my best friend's older brother. Anyway, she married brother. And so I eventually married her older brother, and we moved to Fresno and started having babies, had 3 babies in 4 years. And
Wow.
oh, and 1960, he was a piano and organ salesman, and he sold a Hammond court organ to a couple, and they said something about, I didn't know, I was not there, but they said something about they go to this place over the Santa Cruz Mountains called Lupin. And so he came home and told me, and I said, oh, I never heard of that place, but that sounds like fun. So we went over there, and it just happened to be in December or something, and nobody in their right mind would take their clothes off, But we decided that we liked it so much there that we didn't really want to raise the children and be doing what we were doing in Modesto. So we thought, okay, we'll just sell everything and build a house right above Lupin. And that was so that was a full-on experience of being a social nudist. Up to that time, social nudism was, and still isn't, particularly interesting to me as a a social movement. I'm always more interested in my own particular pleasure and what's comfortable for me. My partner Glenn Stout he liked the idea of a social nudist movement way more than I was interested in it. I just liked being naked mostly and being at Lupin, and then and then we had the opportunity because I was taking care. I was a caretaker at Lupin, involved with its maintenance and so forth. So I got even more involved with the Lupin thing. George Boufil was the owner, and so he and I were good friends. And he was a much older man, and his wife, who was not at all interested in nudism as such, they had like beauty shops or something. So Lupin was really more of his hobby. He wasn't really interested in it as a movement or a business, but it was kind of his hobby. Because I was there for a couple of years taking care of Lupin, cleaning bathrooms and so on and so forth. And then George, the old Frenchman, and Ethel, the manager, got very sick. They had flu or something, got very, very sick. Oh, and George had a stroke. That's right. And so it was a conversation that Glenn and I had about what's going to happen to Lupin if George dies. And so Glenn, he was a vice president of a pharmaceutical company in Silicon Valley at the time, and he was a Stanford graduate and a graduate of Yale, and so he seemed like he was a pretty literate guy. And so I told him of the story, like George is got a stroke and he may not survive, and I don't know what's going to happen to Lupin. So Glenn fashioned a proposal to George that we buy Lupin at a certain amount, and that we bought it on a lease option.
Sure.
And so every 5 years we would redo the lease option at that initial price, and so that's how Glenn and I became the owners of Lupin, as it were.
You guys saved her.
Yeah. I don't know if that was even in the paper that you read.
It was, yeah, actually, Glenn, very literate guy, I would add. His writing is very, very captivating and really fun to read. But yeah, he wrote a little bit about that.
Yeah, Glenn was a very good writer, and he did all of the promotional writing about Lupin and what our mission was and that sort of thing. None of that, I didn't care about that. I just was interested in keeping things running at Lupin, making sure the pools were cleaned and the hot tub was properly maintained and that sort of thing. So.
And in addition to that, you guys, or at least you, did a lot of repairs and upgrades to the grounds. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, we started because in the beginning there was just Glenn and myself, and so it was pretty clear that if we were going to make it work, we needed a staff of people. So we started, getting people to come and live there. And so we had a live-in staff. One time, I think we had as many as 25 to 30 people living there at Lupin who were on staff. They all, if they were working for their own board, we needed to have food service. So we had a full-on restaurant also. And so I got involved with, that. There were times when people didn't show up to cook. And so I, being kind of the manager of Lupin, I ended up doing a lot of the cooking. And so that was a very busy part of my life at that time. Yeah. Plus having 3 children, we see 1 in grammar school and 2 in high school and that sort of thing. And building the house at the same time as running Lupin.
Wow.
Yeah, very busy, very busy. So. My youngest son and his wife were living, he was helping me out at Lupin on staff, and so they needed a place to live, so they lived in one of the cottages, houses at Lupin, and then they had a baby, so my grandson, Shane, was born there at Lupin, so,
wow.
And Shane's still a big part of my life. My youngest son died a few years back of cancer. And so, yeah, that was kind of, and Glenn got married and had twin girls who are now, I think, just graduated from high school recently, maybe last year or year before. Anyway, so then Glenn died, of course, and his wife inherited Lupin, and so I have little or no interest in Lupin as such at this time because I don't need it. I can run around naked here,
Sure.
which I do. And it's not really the same. I can't be everywhere on the property, but we have a swimming pool in the backyard, and we can be back there sans clothing, and that's what interests me.
Yeah. You mentioned you live in a treehouse. What's that like?
Yeah, I built a tree. Yeah, I like building, so I built a tree house, and I live here in my tree house.
That's amazing.
And yeah, amazing. So, how old is your son?
I have he's about 21 months now, so I have almost a 2-year-old.
Oh, okay.
And I have strong feelings that I would like to raise my son, at least with an openness to this sort of lifestyle and to nudism. I don't want to raise him necessarily as a nudist, but I'm just curious to know, you did that with your kids and are open about it with your grandkids, it sounds like. Do you recommend that? Do you have any thoughts about raising your children in that environment and what
I
are your
certainly
feelings?
didn't have a lot of thoughts about it at the time. I mean, it was just it was a natural thing to be doing for me, and my kids always kind of embraced whatever it was that I was doing, whether it was building a house or running Lupin. They were always involved with whatever I was doing. So I guess looking back, it wasn't like, okay, well, we're all going to be nudists now.
Sure.
So that was never like,
Sure.
we just were.
Yeah.
They were little. I think my youngest son was probably about 4 years old, 5 years old when joined Lupin. They were little guys. I had 3 children in 4 years, so they were all they all seemed like they were babies at the same time and all grew up at the same time, which they did.
That's wonderful.
Anyway, so just from my own personal experience, I think just enabling or allowing babies to be clothes free. They don't like clothes anyway, I figured out. I don't think I have any really close, good friends who aren't accepting of, maybe they can't, live a nudist lifestyle like I do,
Sure.
but they embrace it, or would maybe are even envious that, I've been able to in my life. But I think I can't think of, well, I can think of some relatives who would not be understanding, and I simply don't care. I mean, it's not a subject that, it's like walking into a room of Democrats and saying something about being you're a Republican. You just like, why bother,
Mhm. Yeah, sure.
Anyway,
you don't
so
do it for their approval.
yeah. Long as I can be comfortable in doing what I want to do when I want to do it, pretty much, that's the best I can hope for.
do you think that you would like to see any laws change in our society in terms of being able to go nude?
Tons and tons of laws. Most laws.
Yeah.
There's practically hardly any laws that I wouldn't change for what I consider to be a better law. But
Sure.
that's life in America.
Yeah.
I think probably there are places in the world that are way more relaxed about social nudity than Americans. I think it's very heavily involved with religion. There's some countries that are based on religious notions, none of which interests me at all. I think probably my parents were atheists. I'm sure of it. But I don't go around preaching it. Well, maybe I do a little bit, but anyway.
I appreciate that. I'm inclined to agree with you about it being much more of a personal thing than this whole movement that it's been made out to be.
It has to be a personal thing, but that's the way it is. And there are lots of things about the way I think about the world that are personal, and I don't proselytize. Why bother? I simply, the people I hang out with and that I'm close to are people that are closer to the way I think. Otherwise, why bother? I would certainly like to see more body acceptance, in generally speaking, but I realize that there's a huge industry to counteract that. All the beauty industry is huge and certainly doesn't support that notion at all. But living as close to the West Coast as I do, it would be wonderful to be able to go anywhere along the beaches in California without clothes. I can't even appreciate a wet bathing suit, and I don't think most people do, but they wouldn't take it off, And I really find little children that are allowed to run around with nothing on and being joyful about it. I find that encouraging, but that's not the way it is in America or in most of the world, I think. So.
Yeah, it seems to me that there was once a day where families particularly participated in nudism much more than today. I bring my family to my local club and I don't see a lot of other families there. Is that what it was like for you when you were running Lupin? Were there a lot of families,
Oh, well, yeah, like you say, Lupin, we had at one point, I think Glenn and I actually had about 1,000 members of Lupin. We could say that, or 1,000 paying members of Lupin. Wow. So yeah, numbers make a difference. And Lupin is isolated in that it's you can't see it except maybe from the air. Occasionally people would wander into Lupin uninvited just to see for themselves, like, is this real? And but mostly because I lived there so long and spent most of my time, actually I didn't spend most of my time naked because I was always doing projects that required wearing clothes, like cooking.
Yeah.
It's dangerous to be cooking naked sometimes. And because we were a year-round club, obviously in the wintertime, we didn't go naked. nobody was allowed to be in the pool or the hot tub with anything on. That was one of our rules, you might say, which is understandable. You know, who would get into a hot tub with a bathing suit on? And our pool was heated in the winter time, so that was, you know, a comfortable thing. But you know, we had 30 staff people running around taking care of Lupin, mostly with their clothes on, except in the summertime. I have some friends that were living here in one of the rentals for a while, and she was pregnant. She had her baby here. Wow. at our community, right here they lived in one of the yurts, and we've been really good friends for a long time now. They now have 2 babies, and the older of the 2, she would go swimming with me naked, and it was a delight to her. Now she says, "Can we be naked?" And I go, "Yes." So it's different for them. Yeah. They can only be naked here at our pool in our backyard, but it's not something that they do at home. But she remembers how fun it was for her to be naked. Wow. So she says, "Can I be naked?" I go, "Yep." And so, you know, it's a special thing for her. And she realizes, and she's only 4, going on 5 years old now. She realizes that there's a special place and a special time when that can be a part of her life. And grateful when we can live naked, as Fred and I were this summer. We spent 6 weeks in a forest in Oregon, naked, every day, all day, and it was delightful. Wow. I felt like I did when I was a little kid, just so free. And I know that as soon as we drove out in our car, we couldn't be, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's a hard moment.
Yeah, and I'm grateful for when we can and have that freedom.
That's wonderful. That's amazing.
Very possibly if I had come to nudism as an adult, as you have, well, your wife has, Fred has, I might think differently, because I've been a nudist all my life, so I don't really think about how that would be if I couldn't be.
Sure.
I mean, I realize that I can't be a lot of the time, and it has to be okay. You know, I'm a part of a larger society that doesn't appreciate nudity, and you know, poor them. So,
yeah, definitely. Okay.
Or lucky me, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Any questions you want to ask?
No, you've been so kind to talk to me for so long. I really appreciate it.
Well, good. We can do that. And next time, maybe we'll have our clothes off.
Yeah.
Make it sooner than later.
All right. Thanks so much. Talk to you guys later.
Take care.
This episode featured music by Lobo, Loco, Dr. Turtle, Dee Yan-Key, and Group 180, and was provided by the Free Music Archive. The theme song was composed by yours truly. Glenn Stout was voiced by John Bidstrup. Special thanks to Carl Hild, Susan Douglas, John Bidstrup, Shannon Lewis, Timothy Sargent, Jeff Tice, Debbie Hurst, Lori K. Stout, Fred Johnson, and Lora Boswell. And an extra special thanks to Stefan Duchesne and Samantha Graham of the Naturist Living Show. If you like this podcast, be sure to subscribe to the Naturist Living Show, wherever you find your podcasts. Find us on Twitter, leave us a comment at Naked Age Pod, or find me, Evan Nix, at Naturist Vintage. This show was brought to you by the Naturist Living Show. Thanks for listening.